Today's daf is daf Mem Tes, and we're going to begin with the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Ches Amud Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom. Now, just by way of introduction, the pasuk says in Parshas Mishpatim, "V'chi yinotzu anoshim v'nogfu isha hara v'yotzu yiladeh v'lo ya'ason anoshi anesh kasher yashis alav bala isha v'nasan b'plilim." And the pasuk sets up a chiyuv in a case where a man tried to hit his friend, but instead he hit a pregnant woman without intending to hit her. And the Mishnah wants to address a very similar scenario, but instead of a human being hitting inadvertently a pregnant woman and causing her to lose her vlodos, it was a shar that did that. Shar shahim eskavin lechavero. So a shar was tried to attack another shar. Vehika es ha'isha v'yatzu yiladeh. He inadvertently, the shar hit a woman, a pregnant woman, and she lost her vlodos. Is potter. The Baal Shar does not have to pay dmei vlodos. The Adam shayim eskavin lechavero vehika es ha'isha v'yoldu yiladeha mishalim avlodos. So, in contrast to a man who accidentally knocked out the vlodos of a woman when he really wanted to be Maka Chavero, who has to pay dmei vlodos, in the case of a shar, there's no chiv of dmei vlodos. Now the Mishnah goes on to ask, Ketzad mishalem dmei vlodos. We need what's called a shuma, and we have to evaluate dmei vlodos. How do we do so? And the Mishnah says we don't evaluate the vlodos as they would be worth per se if somebody would buy in a shutfis the vlodos, but rather shomanisa isha kama hi yafa ad shelo yolda, but kama hi yafa misha yolda. The Tanakama's view here is that how much was this woman's value devaluated as a result of the fact that she lost her vlodos. And the underlying premise of the Tanakama is that she would be worth more pregnant than she is today without the vlodos. So the differential between what she would be worth if she was still pregnant and what she's worth now as a result of the loss of the vlodos, which is much less than the vlodos per se, is what the Baal, the Makeh has to pay. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel retorts to the Tanakama, and here we start today's Daf Mem Tes. Im Kain, according to your opinion that the Shuma is done as far as the Dmei Vlodos in the way that you want to do it, then the Mazik is not going to pay anything. Why? Because Misha Isha Yoledes Misha Bachas. On the contrary, instead of going down in value, as a result of the fact that she no longer is carrying the vlodos, she goes up in value. And the reason for that is because a pregnant woman, and we'll see a difference between the first birth and second birth, is in danger of chas v'sholom dying because of what we call tsar leda. And especially back in the time of the Mishnah, pregnancy and birth was a dangerous proposition. Even today, it's still dangerous. And a woman who gives birth recites gomel because of that sakana. But in any event, the premise here of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is that that the value of the woman goes up once she's no longer a pregnant woman. And therefore, how do we understand that the Torah obligates the man who knocked out these vlodos to pay dmei vlodos? El shomenes avlodos kama hein yofen. But rather, we're going to try to figure out what would a person pay to become a shutuf in a woman by acquiring ownership on the vlodos. And that obviously is going to be a hefty sum of money, which the Makeh has to pay. The Mishnah continues and presents a thesis which is unanimously accepted to both Tanakama and Rav Shimon Gamliel, and that is that no sein lebal, who collects the Dmei Vlados? Now, you might have argued logically that she should collect the Dmei Vlados, insofar as the Vlados are part of her body. But the Pasuk says, Anoshi Anesh Kasher Yashis Olav Baal Haisha B'Nasan B'Plilin. And therefore the Torah is machadish that the Baal, her husband, is, so to speak, the owner of the Vlados. And therefore he collects the Dmei Vlados from the Makeh. And if he dies, then im ein la Baal liyarshav. Those who inherit the heirs of the Baal will collect the Dmei Vlados. Hoisa shivcha v'nishtachra o giores. Now, these are cases in which there is no Baal who had rights to the Dmei Vlados. For example, if, let's say, a man is married to a shivcha, let's say, for example, an Eved Ivri was married to a shivcha, and now he gave her a get shivur, he freed her, and at this point, she is now a Bas Yisrael Giores, or a Giores. So let's say, for example, in the case of a Giores, she got married to a Ger, and the Ger died. The Ger has no Yorshin. So what happens now? On the one hand, there's no Baal or Yorshim to collect the Dmei Vlados. On the other hand, maybe by virtue of what word do I want to use now? If there's no one to collect the Vlados, maybe she can collect the Vlados. And the Mishnah says, no, Potter, the market doesn't have to pay for the Vlados. There's no Yorshim, and basically, whatever monies the Makeh was chayav, he now is zochen those monies himself. And we start the Gemara now. The Mishnah says that if a shar tried to attack another shar and instead he attacked a pregnant woman who lost her Vlados, then the Baal HaShar is potur, time of the miskavin lechavero. Ha miskavin la'isha, mishalim tmei Vlados. The Mishnah, by implication, is telling us that if the shar deliberately attacked a pregnant woman and she lost her Vlados, then the Baal HaShar will pay for the Vlados. Again, the only reason the Mishnah says that the Baal HaShar is exempt from payment is because the shar did not have kavanah for the Isha. Is lemet heavy tiyuf to the Rav Ada bar Ava. This should be a question, or shall we say a contradiction, to the view of Rav Ada bar Ava. Now, we had Rav Ada bar Ava back on Daf Mem Beis, and if you recall, he darshan the pasuk Ubal Ashar Noki, and he derived from that pasuk that if a shar attacks a pregnant woman and she loses her Vlados, Noki, the Baal Ashar, does not pay. And Shvarm Shen is Kavnu Isha, even in the case where the shar had deliberate intention to attack the Isha, and she lost her Vlados, Pturim, the Baal HaShar is Potim Dmei Vlados. And our Mishnah seems to be against Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada bar Ava, in self-defense, who adin dafilin is kavnu isha nami pturin. Even in a case where a shar deliberately attacked a pregnant woman and she lost her Vlados, the Baal HaShar is potur midvei Vlados. You were medayik in the Mishnah about the Ketani. The Mishnah says shar shoyim is coming lechavero, as if to say that the only reason why the Baal HaShar is potur is because the shar did not have a deliberate intention to attack a pregnant woman. No, we're going to apply the ID the Ketani Sefer, Ketani Nami Reisha. In other words, it's just a literary rule that either the Kabbalah Misnei Sefer since the Tana and the Sefer wants to talk about Adam, and in the case of Adam, he's only chayiv to mevlados because I miskaven lechavero, and the Torah says that even though he tried to hit his friend, and unintentionally he hit a pregnant woman, and she lost her vlados, the hachi ksiv kra, that's the exact scenario which is described in the Parsha Mishpatim, is therefore Ktani Nami Reisha Shorshay Miskavin Lechavero. So this is the literary rule of symmetry, that the Reisha should be symmetrical to the Sefer. And if the Sefer is talking about a case where he had kavana for his chaver and not for the Isha, then the Reisha likewise in the case of a shar, when he was miskavin for another shar and not for the Isha. But in fact, even if the shah was mekavin for another, even if the shah was miskavin for the isha directly, deliberately, the bala shah would be put. Omar Papa. Now, regarding the statement that we're going to learn now in the name of Rav Papa, we have a machlokas rishonim how to interpret it. We're not sure if Rav Papa accepted Rav Ada bar Ava or he's going out on his own. I'll explain as we go along. Rav Papa says the following. In the case of a shar that attacks a woman and the Baal shar is potifet mei vlodos, nevertheless, shar shenogas hashivcha v'yatzi l'dea mishalim tmei vlodos. So when Rav Papa says that the shar is chayav, meaning the Baal shar, of course, in a very particular case of shivcha, and implying that if the shar had attacked a woman who was not a shivcha, the Baal shar would be pot. We're not sure, and the Rishonim debate this, whether or not the Baal shar is potter in the regular case, not in the shivcha case, because he had kavana for another shar, and that would reflect the shita of Rav Ada bar Ava, or even in a case, as the Gemara reinterprets the Mishnah, where the shar had kavana directly and deliberately to attack a pregnant woman. Now, if the Baal shar is potter in those cases, then why is he chayav in the case of Nogach Zashiv? My time. And the Gemara answers, I'm going to introduce the Gemara in my own language, and we'll fit it into the language of the Gemara, that in the case of a Shivcha, Hav Lados are considered like part of her body. In the language of the Gemara, Chamarta mi abrata bi alma hudiazik. What would it be if a shar attacked a pregnant animal, like, for example, a pregnant donkey or any other pregnant animal? So the Baal shar would have to pay to Mei Vlados if the victim of the attack lost the Vlados. And now we're going to say that a Shivcha has the same status as a Behema, as a Chamor in this case. This is called the famous principle of Amma Doma L'Chamor, which we'll see in a second. And therefore, the Baal Ashar that attacked a Kaviyachal, a pregnant animal, and the animal lost its Vlados, will pay the Mei Vlados. The Yom Kra, this is a pasuk after the Avram and Yitzchak were on the way to the Akedah. Shvu lachem po machamor. What does that mean, imachamor? Chazal say it means Eliezer. It's a reference to Eliezer, who's an Eved Kanani, and it's called Am Hadom El Chamor. Now, technically speaking, the context in which Chazal derive the principle of Am Hadom El Chamor is Yuchsin. And what does that mean, Yuchsin? That means that just like a shor doesn't have yichus, or a chamor doesn't have yichus, so too an eved doesn't have yichus. And let's say, for example, a shivcha who's pregnant gives birth, then it's like a chamor that gives birth, and there's no yichus. How does this apply in our context? The shar was mazik, the vlados, and the Torah says in the case of a Jewish woman who's married to a Jewish man that the vlados belong to the husband. But that's not so in the case of a shivcha because there's no yichus to the husband. So he's not considered in any sense the bailim or the tovim that could collect money for the vlados of a relationship that he had with a shivcha. Now we're going to analyze the case of Dmei Vlados in terms of how to estimate and evaluate the Dmei Vlados. How do we do a shuma, as we said? So first, the Gemara is going to analyze the Tanakama, and then we'll go on to Reb Shimon Gamliel. According to the Tanakama, the Gemara asks, Dmei Vlados, Shevach Vlados mi boile. Why does the Mishnah use the term Dmei Vlados? We're not going to evaluate the Dmei Vlados according to the Tanakama, but rather we're going to evaluate the woman as she was before the Makkah, before the Negicha, or the Makkah, I should say, because we're talking now about a man who attacked a woman. And the Ibur, the fact that she was pregnant before the Makkah, raised her value on the market. People want to buy a shivcha, so to speak, who has vlados. So therefore, what the Mishnah should have said, if it was more precise, was Ketzet Shomin Dmei Vlados and Shvach Vlados, meaning the Shvach, the extra money that she would bring in if she was pregnant. So the Vlados are mashbiach her value on the market. And instead, the Mishnah says, it's Dmei Vlados. It's Shvach Vlados. Shvach Vlados means the extra value that she has. So the Gemara answers, Hachi Nami Ka'amar. This is really what the Tana has in mind, that the Shuma will be Shvach Vlados. And we're going to have to learn the Mishnah in the following way. Ketzah Mishalim Dmei Vlados u'Shvach Vlados. In other words, how do we evaluate the fact that now she lost these Vlados, which were Mashbiach the Isha, had she had the Vlados? Shomin es Isha Kamma Yafa, how much was she worth? Ad Shalo Yoda, as long as she was pregnant. Kamma Yafa Mishiyolda, now she goes down in value because she gave birth to the Vlados. And so too, as a result of the fact that the Hakah destroyed her Vlados, she now loses that value, that increment value of Shvach Mahmas Avlados. And that's the amount of money that the Baal will be able to collect from the market. Now we move on to the machlokas between Reb Shimon Gamliel and the Tanakam. Reb Shimon Gamliel says in Cain, meaning according to you, Tanakama, Misha Ishi Yoledes Mishabeches. What's going on? It's the exact opposite of what the Chachamim say. The Chachamim say that she had more of a shvach before she gave birth. Frek the Gemara Maika Omar. The lashon of Reb Shimon Gamliel in the Mishnah, as recorded in the Mishnah, makes no sense because it sounds like he was objecting to the Tanakama because according to Dvarecha, according to the Tanakama, after the woman gives birth, she's worth more on the market. That doesn't make sense. He's accusing this a libel against the Tanakama. Amar Rabba Hochi Kamma. So Rabba is going to be the first shita now Gemara in interpreting Rav Shimon Gamliel, and then we'll have Rava. Rabba says that where Rav Shimon Gamliel was arguing against the Tanakam is v'chi isha mishabeches kodem sheteled yoser mishaliachar sheteled. How could you say that she was worth more before she gave birth? Hello, isha mishabachas liachar sheteled yoser mikodem sheteled. Her leda enhances her value on the market. As we said before, because a pregnant woman is in a dangerous situation, because from the labor pain she might chas v'shalom die. So therefore, your whole logic, says Rav Shimon Gamliel to the Tanakh, is incorrect. It's not that she was worth more before she gave birth, but rather she's worth less before she gives birth and more after she gives birth. So now let's try to see if we can fit it into the words of Rav Shimon Gamliel. Im kidvarecha, right? Im kain. That we're going to evaluate Dmei Vlados based on the value of the woman, then the mazik is not going to pay anything. Because, says Rav Gamliel, according to my logic, on the contrary, after she gives birth, she goes up in value. El Shomenes Havlados, we have a separate shuma on the Vlados. How much would a person want to pay for the Vlados so that when the Vlados are born, he owns the Vlados? And that value, Nosnin Lebal, is that's what to pay Vlados is to pay to the Baal. Tanya Nami Hochi, and we have a price to support Rabbah. Soon we'll see that Rabbah disagrees and he brings a price to support him. V'chi Isha Mishabachas Kom Sheteled Yosef Lachshetena Halo Isha Mishabachas Liachas Sheteled Yosef Mikodem Sheteled El Shomenes Havlados Lebal. Rava Amar, Rava disagrees with Rabbah. He has a different take on Rav Shimon Gamliel. Hachi Ktani. This was the argument of Rav Shimon Gamliel against the Tanakama. According to your logic, Mr. Tanakama, Rabbi Tanakama, it seems that the mazik would pay everything to the Baal. In other words, the woman, the Isha, who has the Vlados and lost the Vlados, has no claim whatsoever. V'chi Isha lemi sheyoledes mishabachas. What about the Gufa Isha? Forget about the Vlados for a moment. Okay, you want to say that the Torah gave the rights to the Baal to collect Dmei Vlados. As we said earlier, he becomes the Baal of Vlados. Fine, that I can accept. But wait a second. What about her? Doesn't she have rights to collect from her own goof? In other words, forgetting about the Vlados for a moment, the fact that she's pregnant jacks up her value on the market. And according to Rav, even Rav Shimon Gamliel agrees that she was worth more pregnant than she is now without the Vlados. So then she went down in value. Her goof on the market has decreased. The Ainli Asma Bishvach Vlados Klum? Are you saying that a woman has no monetary rights to that increase in her goof's value as a result of the Vlados? Why do you say that the Domim of the Nezek goes totally and exclusively to the Baal and you cut her out of the picture? What about the Nezek that she suffered to her goof? Because as a result of losing her Vlados, she herself, Begufa, has decreased in value. Ella, therefore, Shimon Gamliel says that there's going to be a little bit of a split over here between the Baal and the Isha. Shamin es havlados v'nostim leBaal. I agree to you that the Baal has rights to Dmei Vlados, but the Shvach Vlodos, in other words, the higher value that she had while she was pregnant as a result of the Vlodos, Cholkim. In other words, the Vlodos, not in and of themselves, but as an extension of her body, or an expansion of her body, that loss should be suffered by both the Baal and the Isha equally. So it comes out, according to Rava, that Rav Shimon Gamliel, on the one hand, it concedes to the Tanna Kamma that she was worth more before she gave birth than after she lost her Vlodos. And we're going to evaluate the Dmei Vlodos as is, as a separate entity, in order so that the Baal could collect that which the Torah was Mizaka him, namely the Dmei Vlodos. But we need another Shuma. Rav Shimon insists that we have to evaluate the Hezek to the Gufa Isha as a result of losing her Vlodos, because she had a Shvach, she was worth more when she was pregnant. And that Dmei Shvach begufa shel Isha, as a result of the Vlodos, is going to be divided between the Baal and the Isha. Tanya Nami Hochin, just like we brought a Brisa to support Rava, we're going to bring a Brisa now to support Rava. And that is, Omer Rav Shimon Gamliel, v'chi Isha lemi sheyoledes mishabeches. In other words, only the Baal gains from the fact that she's pregnant. We have to pay some nizokin, some compensation to the Isha. Ein le Isha atzma, yes, a rhetorical question. Shvach v'lodos klum? Elo shomenes ha-nezek b'fnei atzma, hatzar b'fnei atzma, v'shomenes dvei v'lodos, v'nosen lebal shvach v'lodos, v'cholkim. Now you'll notice at this point, the Bryce introduces another two elements, which are called nezek and sar. And the nezek to her guf means that now she's worth less as a result of the fact that she has an empty uterus, an empty womb, if you will. And that's called nezek. That has to be evaluated unto itself. And then there's tsar, because of the pain that she suffered for the chavola on her guf. All those are not exclusively the Baal's rights to collect, but rather, although we evaluate the Vlodos, and that goes directly to the Baal, the Torah gave him the schus to collect the Vlodos, but as far as the Shvach Vlodos and the devaluation of her guf as a result of the fact that she lost the Vlodos, that is Cholkin. That money is to be divided between the Baal and the Isha. Now, again, we're very pressed for time, but there's a whole sugya that we might make reference to, that Rashi makes reference to in Masechet Ksuba Samach Hey, and that's the sugya Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, and he differentiates between two types of hakah. There's what's called hakah b'makom seiser shebegufa, and there's a hakah in a makom golui shebegufa. If it's hakah in the makom seiser shebegufa, which is not obvious to the naked eye, then the chovel pays 2/3 of the dmei nezek to the Baal, I'm sorry, 2/3 to the Isha, and 1/3 to the Baal. But if the hakah was b'makom golui shebegufa, then the makeh, the chovel, pays 2/3 to the Baal and only 1/3 to the Isha. Again, very complicated, profound sugya in Ksubas. I just mentioned it. Now, it seems that the Chachamim, the Tanna Kamma, who rejected Rav Shimon Gamliel, would maintain that Shvach Vlodos, like Dmei Vlodos, goes to the Baal. But what confuses me here, and we'll try to see if we can figure this out, is Tsar. The Tsar that she suffered as a result of the Hakah, I think that for sure the Chovel pays to her, even according to the Tanakh. In any event, now we have two different brisos recording two different understandings of Rav Shimon Gamliel. One that reflects the interpretation of Rabbah, and the other that reflects the interpretation of Rava. Kasha de Rav Shimon Gamliel ad Rav Shimon Gamliel. So what is it? Is it the first brisa, which supporting Rabbah means that she goes down in value? I'm sorry, she goes up in value as a result of losing her flodos, or is Rav Shimon Gamliel assuming, as reflected in the second brisa that we just quoted now, which reflects Rava's interpretation, that she goes up in value, that she goes down in value as a result of that Hakah? Lo kasha kan b'mvakeres, the kan b'eina b'mvakeres. When we talk about the danger of dying at childbirth, Nebuch, we have to differentiate between the danger in the first birth, when she gives birth for the first time, that's called mvakeres, as opposed to the second time, third time, etc. In the case of the first time around, her birth process is a very dangerous one. Her body has not yet accustomed itself to give birth. And therefore, the amount of pain and the element of danger to a life is that much greater. And therefore, when we see the whole picture, she actually goes up in value, and that was the first brisa, as a result of birth. But the second brisa is talking about a repeat performance, not the first birth, and it's not so painful, and we don't think that she'll die from childbirth, from the pain of childbirth, is therefore she will go down in value as a result of losing havlados. Okay. Now, according to Rava's interpretation of Shimon Gamliel, that there's something called shvacha isha machmas vlados, that her value is enhanced as a result of the fact that she's pregnant. And that value of Tmei Shvacha Isha should be split between the Baal getting half and the Isha collecting half. Now let's analyze the Tanakama. For Rabbanon di Amri Shvach Vlodos Nami Lebal. Again, notice that in the brisa that supported Rava, there was also discussion about Tsar. And in the Gemara that we're looking at now, there's no mention of Tsar. I suspect that even the Rabbanan would agree that she collects the Tsar. But I couldn't find anyone who said that explicitly. So now we're going to talk about Shvach Vlodos. Is my timer. Why does the husband have the right to exclusive rights to collect Shvach Vlodos without dividing them with the Isha? And the reason is explained, and here I'm going to change the girsa based on the Marshal, and that is Kiddusanya. We learned in the Brisa, Mimashmos Shenemar, when we read the pasuk of V'yatzu Yiladeha, what do you understand from V'yatzu Yiladeha? That she was pregnant. Is any Yodeh she hara? I don't know that she's pregnant. If she lost the vlados, obviously she was pregnant. Ma Talmud Lomar hara. Why does the Torah say v'nagfu isha hara? The word hara is superfluous, and therefore Lomar lecha, it's a ribui to tell us about the zchus of the Baal, and that zchus of the Baal is now being, the scope of that zchus of the Baal, the financial, is being expanded. That shvach hiroyon lebal, that the fact that her value has increased on the market because she's pregnant that goes to the Baal. Again, no mention here about the Nezek. I'm sorry, about the Tsar. Frek the Gemara, Rav Shimon Gamliel, Hai Hora my Dorish Bay. He holds that the Dmei Shvach are split, so the Torah did not give an exclusive right to the Baal. What does he do with Hora? He needs it for a brisa. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, if a person hits a pregnant woman and she loses avlodos, the olam eno chayav ad sheyakena keneged beis hahiroyim. So the mahakah has to be in a certain specific part of the body, which is called the beis hahiroyim. In other words, close to the uterus, to the womb. And then we can assume, logically, that as a result of this hakah, she lost the vlodos. However, if, let's say, the hakah was to her legs or to her shoulders, then there would be no chiyuv on the part of the Baal, on the part of the makeh to pay dmei vlodos. It's not just against the womb. Ella kol heicha desolik be shichma livlan. Any place in the body where there's warmth that's generated by that part of the body that allows the uber to survive. Lafuki yad v'regel, as opposed to hitting her in the arms or in the feet, below, then he doesn't pay dmei vlodos. The Mishnah says, "Shivcha v'nishtachra o giores potur amar rabalo shanu." When does this halacha apply? That if you hit the shivcha and the giores and she loses the vlodos, he's potur. Elik shechavel babachaya abalus the ger. Right. So it means that since the chavola took place while the Baal, the ger, was alive, he therefore was zochet to the dmei vlodos, and he's gone. And if he's gone and he has no yorshim because he's a ger, then the mazik is potter. However, right, they came in the chavel bei b'chai hager zocha b'hager, came in the meis hager zocha b'hu ben hager. Avol, this is the part that we want to get at. Chavel bo liachar misas hager. If, let's say, the ger's misa took place before the chavola, so then who is zocher in the vlodos? Are they hefker? Are they ownerless? Because the ger died without yorshim? No. Zochsala'i begavai. She now is zocher in the vlodos. And here there's machlokes why and how. Some say that she was zocher in a hefker. It's almost as if she made a maisa kinyan because the vlodos are in her body. And others say no, that the Torah was mizakeh to her in a way in which she, so to speak, inherits the vlodos from her Baal, who now died. The first interpretation is that of Rashi and of the Rashba, and the Pnei Yeshua says no. Yeah, and the Pnei Yeshua expands on this, that she is kodem lahachzik b'nitzei ager shemes, right? The nitzei ager are hefker, and she was kodem, and she was zocher. However, the other possibility is that the Isha has a direct schus in the vlodos once her husband, the ger, dies. All right. So now we have time T1, T2, T3. At time T1, her husband, the ger, died. At time T2, therefore, in the aftermath of his death, she is zoch in the vlodos. At time T3, the makeh knocked into her body, and therefore, mechayev l'shlumi lo l'dida. He has to pay dmei vlodos to the isha. Omrav Chizda Mori Dichi. He is the Baal Hashmua. he says, I have a kash on what you said. Otu vlodos tzrori ninu v'zachya behu. Tzroros is another way of saying money. You have money or any other chayfetz that's worth money, and now you transfer bailus from one person to the other through Torah's kinyanim. And now you're going to tell me that we treat the vlodos as if it's a hefza of mammon, and therefore she's zochem in a hefker? Clearly, the vlodos are not nechasim. They're not a hefza of mammon. They are human beings. Ella, but rather, if at the time of the chavola, Isa Labal, the Baal is alive, Zachale Rachmana. Less Labal, if there's no Baal, then lo. No one has chus in the vlodos. The Torah didn't say that the mazik has to pay dmei vlodos if there's no one to be tovea the dmei vlodos. The Baal is the only one that the Torah gave us chus, monetary rights to the vlodos, and therefore he has the right to collect dmei vlodos. If he's not in the picture, then the mazik doesn't have to pay dmei vlodos. And that's against Rabbah, who says, no, the Isha will collect the dmei vlodos. The Gemara has a kasha on Rabbah. Meisvei hikos Isha v'yolda v'yotza yiladea. No say nezek tsar lo Isha. Okay, so this reflects the shita of the Tanakama against Rav Shimon Gamliel, the way Rava explained it. And therefore, she has rights to collect both nezek, meaning the value of her goof that went down as a result of the fact that she lost the vlodos, and tsar, the pain that she suffered. Tmei vlodos labal. Oh, says the Raisa ein habal, meaning he's dead. No say li yarshav. Tmei vlodos go to the Baal. The ein ha'isha. In the case of nezek and tsar, since she died, is lior shehosh. These were monies that are coming to her, and now she transfers it over to the Yerusha to her heirs. Choisa shivcha v'nishtachara o giores zacha. Okay, so now there's a marriage to an eved or to a ger. The eved became mishuchrar, and therefore he's a ger. And now he dies. The Baal dies. Zacha. The mazik now is zoche in the Dmei Vlodos. He doesn't have to pay Dmei Vlodos. So you see from this brisa that when a ger dies, the whole chiyuv of Dmei Vlodos is completely paka, and the mazik is completely exempt from payment. That's against Rabbah, who says it all depends. It could be so, but it's not so, because she now, after his death, is zoche in the Vlodos. And therefore, if the Baal dies before the Chavola, she will be zoche in the Dmei Vlodos. Amri, the Gemara says, you're asking that kasha from this brisa. Why didn't you ask the same kasha from the Mishnah? Mi adifi masnisin, the Okimna, that the Mishnah, according to Rabbah, was interpreted as a case where the Baal died after the Chavola. Shechaval baba chay hager, that the ger, the husband was alive at the time of the Chavola, meis hager, and now at the time of the Chavola, there was never a chiyuv or a schus in Dmei Vlodos because he was already gone. V'hachanami, and the same way that we interpret it according to Rabbi the Brisa, in a case where Chaval Babachaya Baal is so to in the Mishnah, so to in the Brisa, Chaval Babachai Hager, the Baal Umes Hager. But if he was Chaval Ba after the Misas Hager, then the Chi of Hamazik is to pay the Mevlodas to the Isha. Ibais Ema, the Gemara now offers an alternative defense on behalf of Rabbah from this Brisa. Vibais Ema, the Bryce is talking about li achar misas habal. So the chavola was after the Baal died, and in such a case, utni zochsa. We're going to just have to change a language in the Brisa, because we're talking about a case where the chavola took place after the Baal died, and she was zoche in the Dmei Vlados, and that's what we have here on Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph.